Yeah, welcome to this webinar about long-term health for athletes. And we are going to be joined later on by ultra trail runner Judith Wyder from Switzerland. But first of all, I will start telling you a bit about long-term health, especially in athletes. Try to get a better understanding how we can manage the training load, all the stress that we have as athletes, in terms of also having a strong focus on our long-term health. So first, I'm going to tell you a bit about me because it's the first time that I am here in a webinar. Usually you have the pleasure always to talk with Robert Gorgosz, who is my colleague in product development. I am Anna Zierke, so I studied sports science at first, and then I decided to also study nutrition science as a second degree. And I gained some experience as a sports nutritionist while working at an Olympic center in Heidelberg in Germany, where I worked with a lot of different athletes in different sports, and also had a quite good understanding what's the practical issues that athletes suffer from, and could gain a lot of practical experience. And now since 1.5 years, I'm working as a product developer together with Robert Gorgosz, and we are creating we try to create the most smartest products for you as athletes that support your performance, but also with a strong focus on health and well-being. So then I will start with our topic from today. So long-term health in general. When we see or look at our day-to-day routines and day-to-day training, I would say we try to focus on short-term optimization, which means we try to get the best out of our training, daily trainings. We may support it with our training nutrition. We decide whether to take this or that equipment to support our training. So we try to focus all a bit on, the short-term optimization in our training. And if we look into maybe the microcycle where we achieve certain goals, that then counts into the macrocycle and leads us maybe into a better phase where we then are able to achieve a better performance in the long term. So this, I would say, is kind of the day-to-day that we focus on, and it can impact in a positive or negative way our long-term health. And by that I mean, if we're looking to the right side, for example, our bone health, our immune health, or also our musculoskeletal health. So these factors can be affected in a positive or negative way, and we can put our day-to-day decisions here all together and then see how that accounts for long-term health. So I would go into the next slide where I more focus on in general, if I say long-term health, this term means actually the abundance of chronic health diseases, such as chronic inflammation or diseases like diabetes or a cardiovascular disease. So that's in general what long-term health means. But athletes do not really suffer from these chronic diseases. It's quite the opposite, as they live a very healthy life. So for athletes, long-term health means sustaining the performance without compromising future well-being. So it does not have to be a contrast to focus on short-term performance, and longevity can be we can focus both at the same time, but we can also lose the focus on longevity and get a bit too worried about what in the short term may happen. And what the risks are for athletes, what they face in general is not really what I said, the chronic diseases, but more injuries or a chronic overuse, for example, from tendons, from muscles. So when we look at the lower part, chronic inflammation means if an injury is not given time to heal, or not enough time to heal, and we will have a chronic overuse of our tendons and muscles, so this can lead to a state of chronic inflammation on the musculoskeletal health, as I said earlier. We also see that sometimes in athletes in the gut, where we have the condition that's called leaky gut, when the gut barrier itself is not like the integrity is not intact anymore. This can be a result of systemic stress. So first of all, I've been writing down the high oxidative stress levels, which we all have, and I will go into that a bit deeper. But the main issues why that can occur is overtraining and a recovery debt. So I would say as athletes, what is quite important is to manage oxidative stress. And that's why we will talk a bit about oxidative stress today. And the second part will be the microbiome as a performance and health tool in regard to long-term health for an athlete. So when we talk about oxidative stress, we talk first about what does that mean? What is the term oxidative stress? And oxidative stress itself is not a problem. It is even intended for training adaptation. But an excess of these oxidative stress, and the right term would be reactive oxygen species, this is quite a problem. Where do we get these ROS, or reactive oxygen species, from? As I said, training can be one issue, overtraining can be one issue where we create a lot of these oxidative stress. A low sleep quality can also lead to higher levels of oxidative stress in ourselves. So endogenously, we can create oxidative stress, our enzymes. It's actually happening in the mitochondria. And a low energy availability, which means not having energy balance, but having not enough energy, can lead over a long time to a higher oxidative stress level. And psychological stress, which is also a factor that increases this ROS. And oxygen, we can also take up these ROS from our environment, as for example the UV radiation, or smoking, or an unhealthy diet, especially if we have a lot of high processed food. For example, if I think about trans fatty acids, which are in a lot of processed foods, we find them fast foods, and the pollution itself. So that is a bit dependent from in which environment you're living and how the air pollution is. But on the left side, as I said, physiological levels of ROS in athletes are needed for training adaptation. So we need a bit of this stress to adapt to training, because it's kind of a signaling, it signals adaptations in the muscle. So we have this as a performance tool itself. So oxidative stress itself it's not a problem. It's only a problem if there is this excess of reactive oxygen species. And so in the short term, so when it becomes a problem, is if I say it in the easy words, if we do not have enough antioxidants, which are kind of scavengers for these oxidative stress, for these ROS, which are then in the systems, but have more oxidative stress on the other hand. If there's an imbalance, that would be a problem. And in the short term, this would lead to a slower recovery, something we can then also feel and have symptoms from, or an increased injury risk is also a consequence of an excess of reactive oxygen species. And on the right side, you will see the long-term effects that can occur when we have a lot of ROS in the systems. And I think this is quite clear. For example, smoking is a risk for developing lung cancer, but also just the general thing, if we like have always a high load of oxidative stress exogenously and endogenously, then this can be a factor that leads to DNA damage or mutations and accelerated cellular aging. So something we do not want to have, not as non-athletes, but also not as athletes. And in the short term, of course, it does affect our training routines, our performance. But on the long term, it does also affect our overall health, which is a quite important thing to keep in mind. And I wanted to show this graph because it's a bit easier to see it in a model. And we can figure it as an inverted U shape, where you see it's kind of we reach the hormesis. It's called the hormesis when the balance of oxidative stress and antioxidants are in a balance. It's a quite big part where we can see it's like the green area. And on the other hand, if there is too low oxidative stress, which also indicates the magnitude of exercise, so there's not enough exercise, not enough training, training that stimulus or the stimulus of training is not high enough, and that can mean the intensity, but it can also mean like how often we train, for example, in a week. And if this is too low, then of course we do not have any adaptation. We do not see any benefits from training. And when we are in the green part, like we balance it out, we are healthy, and we do not have too much of this oxidative stress level, but we are able to have enough antioxidants, and we do not see any cellular damage, but keep it in a balance. But I just said something wrong. So we do see some damage in the muscles. That's always initially happening, but that also leads to an activation of satellite cells, for example, and we see muscle growth. So that's something we want, but we want to have it in a balance, as I said. And on the right side, you see this turning point when it gets red, where we have an overtraining syndrome, and the reactive oxygen species like accumulate in the system, and we're not able to scavenge this by antioxidants anymore. And this kind of leads then into a fatigued state, or as I said earlier, recovery debt, not being able to recover as good. It can also mean that we are, for example, affected faster from an infect that gets around, so we're getting ill, or catching up some sickness. This is also something that can happen, and will also lead into phases where we are not able to train anymore. And another model which shows quite well what happens if we suffer from a high oxidative stress level over time is this one, which is called the allostasis model. And you see, allostasis is the adaptation which we are in a healthy state. We are able to adapt to heat. We are able to adapt to cold, altitude, or training, for example, a higher amount of training, for example. So this is this flexible state that we have, that the body is able to. But that is only the case if you see in the lower part where we still have a reserve of energy. If you look at our total energy budget, we still have a certain reserve, and this reserve allows us to be flexible and to react to certain situations, as for example heat or cold or altitude. And this is also something that we have, for example, in terms of energy. So if we do not reach the energy demand by one day, but we may reach it the next day, or we overreach it, we are very flexible. The body can manage this energy deficiency, or having too much energy if it's in the short term. But in the longer term, an energy deficiency, or even in this case, oxidative stress, too much oxidative stress over time will accumulate and will use up the energy. So we kind of see an energetic trade-off. So it's the point at which stress-induced energy costs compete with health-sustaining and longevity-promoting growth, maintenance, and repair. And this one you can see in the green part. So the green part means growth, maintenance, and repair. So this, we as athletes, but not only as athletes, I mean, you always want your body to be able to grow, to repair, because only if I look at my skin, it like turns over every month. So this is a repair process that just happens in the background. And this budget or this energy budget here should always be there. So your body is able to work, function properly. And in the lower part, you see the vital functions. But what will happen is really that the growth, maintenance, and repair part, that one will diminish over time when these oxidative stress levels grow, and you have this in this case allostatic overload. And this is something that we do not want to have, because it then leads to also long-term health issues, as I said earlier. Because just to keep in mind, every biological process costs energy, and also the altitude or the magnitude of oxidative stress in our body, if there is too much, that costs the body energy. Okay, in the next slide, I just wanted to quickly sum up that oxidative stress itself is never just a single source. So we often see that coaches refer to overtraining, there's too much load and not enough recovery. Nutritionists will maybe label it as RED-S, so relative energy deficiency syndrome in sports, or physical therapists identify it as a mechanical overload. And then we have maybe the psychologist who says it's an excessive mental stress. So it can be that it's one single source that is maybe dominant, but it's usually like that all that sources kind of play in or play a role, and then reflect a systemic failure. And what I wanted just to sum up here is to remind ourselves to listen to the body, to listen to the symptoms, what I talked earlier about, and to see if fatigue, tiredness, not being able to recover as fast as you're used to, not being able to train as you're used to, being sick all the time, all these factors, and the body is actually very good in giving us signals when oxidative stress accumulates. So we just have to listen to it, which sounds a bit easy, but I think we are all able to do that. And I also wanted to give you some practical strategies to sum up the oxidative stress part. Nutrition-wise, we can, the main focus is, of course, energy balance, as I showed you in the model before, because the body needs this certain energy budget, and energy balance is always required. So if the energy demand is enough, you would also have a stronger focus on what you eat, what you prefer to eat. And polyphenols, for example, are components of plants. So we see them in plants. They actually build them themselves to defend themselves from oxidative stress from outside. So it's actually very smart. Berries, or in the chocolate, the berry, or in coffee, the berry, or in green tea, for example, there are polyphenols, and these ones are great to defend ourselves from oxidative stress. And on the other hand, we see anti-inflammatory foods, for example, ginger, garlic, or fish, or I would also say omega-3 as a supplement in this case, is a source from foods or from ingredients that can react anti-inflammatory in the body. And timing-wise, if we talk about polyphenols, maybe you have heard that, and we recently also launched a product which is full of polyphenols, antioxidants, and just to give you a bit of an idea when to consume them. So in the diet, if you have like berries or you have coffee or dark chocolate, whatever polyphenols, you can have them throughout your diet without thinking about when or where it's does not count in. But if you have like an overload with high antioxidant doses, and that can also mean, for example, if you take a vitamin C supplement plus maybe you drink a cherry juice, have a lot of berries that day, and so on, you would overload this antioxidant dose, or for example, as the cherry shot that we have, we would not recommend to take it directly after training, because then, as I said earlier, it would interfere with your training adaptation. So you want your body to produce the oxidative stress and to build up the own antioxidant enzymes to work for your body, and you do not want to interfere in this moment. So if it comes to high antioxidant doses, you would take it away from training. That means taking them maybe in the morning when you train in the evening, or vice versa, or and there's other loading strategies in terms of the cherry shot, but I will not go into that too much here. Other factors that count in to manage oxidative stress, I would say, is prioritize sleep. As we saw, like low sleep quality is a factor for oxidative stress. Stress management itself, keeping an eye on your agenda. Blood markers. I noted them down because I think it's just in case of if you feel like recovery and training mostly or both is not in line, it does not work out as you're used to, I would say then it may be beneficial to look at these blood markers. These blood markers are mostly not, or in Germany I know they're not involved in a normal blood sample. If you do a test at the doctor, you have to ask that extra and also pay that extra. But I think sometimes it can be interesting to see, do I have enough vitamin D, for example? How is my omega-3 index? Ferritin is like the iron storage in our body. And then the other blood marker would be high sensitive CRP, which means C-reactive protein, which is an indicator for inflammation in the body, and over time. So it's you have the normal CRP, but this HS and high sensitive is over time. So you see if this one is elevated, there's probably a lot of stress or inflammation going on, and the source, it does not say the source, but it say that something is wrong. And it's just, if you're interested in this, you may take a screenshot or so to check these blood markers. But I would say it's not intended to do this in the first place. Just to keep in mind, you can also like look into the blood as a option. And and then I would go into the next part, kind of my favorite part, the gut microbiome as a performance and health tool. So what is the gut microbiome? I'm sure you have heard about it. I will call it the internal ecosystem, which affects the immunity, recovery, and performance. There's not a lot of studies now or made on athletes to really see in which or how it affects performance, but we know it has a positive impact if we have a good gut microbiome, which I will tell you a bit later how that looks like. And why does it matter for athletes? So the gut microbiome, it uses the food components that we cannot digest. So usually the small intestine digests our food, and everything that is not digested properly and not being taken up into the system in our blood, like vitamins and carbohydrates and so on, that will go then into the colon, so the large intestine, and be fermented, or and in this case it's the bacteria that then use these components and create energy for us, create energy for our colon cells, create short fatty acids, and also vital substances for us. So it's a kind of a small fabric in our colon that works for us, and gives us a lot of benefits. And it also does regulate inflammation. It keeps track on the gut barrier, so that it is intact, so that we are not being that there's no bacteria who should not be in our system. And so there's this gut barrier, which is like created by the gut microbiome. And here, as I said earlier, I wanted to tell you how should the microbiome look like, and it should be very diverse. So there should be a lot of different gut bacteria, and we have, or scientists have identified about a lot of good and bad bugs that can occur in our microbiome. And the goal is, of course, to have a lot of the good ones and not as much of the bad bugs. We see that, for example, people who are living as hunters and gatherers, there's not a lot anymore, but we see that in a people that lives in Africa, in the Congo. They are called the Baka, and you see them on the left side. So it's very colorful, the microbiome. You see a lot of different bacteria, and that's because of, or mainly because of their nutrition. But what I can also tell you, so 20% of the gut microbiome is like dictated by our genes. So that's like given by our parents. And later on, as we grow and we have certain foods, we have social interactions. So, for example, our partner is a big factor of how our gut microbiome looks like, and exercise itself also is a factor, and these 80% like create your gut microbiome. And so what the goal is to have a very diverse gut microbiota. And on the right side, to skip to the point, we see that the US Americans, or if you live on a Western diet, which is not very rich in fibers, in plants, in like unprocessed food, you see kind of more of a clean microbiota, which is not really diverse, and not a lot of different species, only a few. And that means, like, if you want to imagine on the left side, you see all these different microbes that can work for us, and it's a quite big potential which we see on the left side. And on the right side, it's kind of there is not enough potential for them to work for us, to keep us healthy, to keep us working, functioning. And and if we come back to the athlete, we want to have a very diverse gut microbiome to be very strong in performance-wise. But the good thing, or the good note here, is that we see in athletes, this is a rugby study, so it's elite rugby athletes from Ireland. On the left side, you see that the diversity of their gut microbiome is higher compared to a control people that have a BMI like in the norm, below 25. And even better if you compare it to a control with a BMI over 28, so they are overweight or obese. So this is, I would say, of course, a positive thing to take home, that athletes also have. So exercise is a factor that helps to create a better microbiome. But as we saw earlier, that oxidative stress is also a factor that can disrupt it, because I talked also about the gut barrier. This is kind of, again, talking about the balance, the right balance of stress and exercise, and also the antioxidants. And just to shortly tell you about, again, the good and the bad bugs. So the good bugs, what do they like, or how can we grow them, or how can we give them the food? I will shortly tell you nutrition-wise what we can do. But the bad microbes, they do prefer sugar. They prefer saturated fats. So all these high processed foods and like not really worthy foods, they induce then inflammation. So they do not have any good function, or they do not really work for us. And yeah, you can feed them by, like, if you have a lot of sugars and have a lot of saturated fats in your normal diet. So yeah, and if you're sedentary, because as we saw, athletes that are having regular exercise, they already have a very diverse gut microbiome. But nutrition, of course, plays a role here. And what we do want is to feed the good bugs, and this will be in the next slide. We see here the practical strategies to create this diversity in our microbiome. How do we do that? By having a diverse diet in general. So including fiber, including all sorts and types of plants. So scientists say you should have like 30 plants a week. 30 plants sounds a lot, but it also includes herbs, it includes seeds or sprouts or spices. So we can have a lot of this only in one meal. So it's easy to have like 10 plants in one meal. But it's, I think, something we can like have an eye on if that is really the case, or if we can like optimize here a bit. Resistant starch, which is also a fiber that is a brilliant source for this good gut bacteria. So if we, for example, cook pasta or potatoes or rice, and then we let it cool down in the or we like have a lot of pasta which we do not have eaten, or potatoes, and then we put it into the fridge and have it the next day, it creates resistant starch, which is then a perfect fiber for this gut bacteria, for the good ones, and then they will grow. By sourdough bread, you will also feed you will have some new gut bacteria that can then grow in your body. This is so a healthy food choice to go for the sourdough bread instead of the maybe just easy wheat bread. Also having sometimes fermented foods. So also scientists say you should have like 1 to 2 a day, which I think is a bit challenging, because having yogurt, kefir, kimchi, or for example cheese, or like fermented cheese, like the old cheese, the salted cheese, or what else? Actually, beer is also a source, or sauerkraut will be another source. I think it's a bit challenging to have this every day, but you can like integrate it as a routine. For example, yogurt and kefir are, I think, easier options to integrate. And then on the other hand, avoid unnecessary antibiotics if possible. If it's not necessary, to not take it. And of course, ultra processed foods. And if you have them, and I know it's a treat, and it's okay to have them sometimes. But to keep in mind, in this case, it's not anything that does good in your or does good for your gut microbiota. So it's just the other way around. It will lead to a growth of the bad bugs. Just to know that we should not do that every day. And then lifestyle options that I noted down, just to manage stress, to handle your training load in general, the volume. It like counts in a bit of the same that I said earlier when it comes to lifestyle decisions to handle your oxidative stress. And then also make sleep a priority. Yeah, so this was what I wanted to tell you about long-term health, to have an idea how we can optimize this, can optimize the performance, but also have an eye on our long-term health in general. And now I would be happy to include Judith into this webinar. But first of all, I wanted to say this last sentence to just not make it too negative. Like, we know that elite sports, it can be healthy. So being an athlete can be healthy in the long term, as long as we balance out training, recovery, and nutrition. Like, these three parts are the most important things. And if these are balanced out, it is, of course, possible to lead a healthy life. And also, we know that athletes even live longer because usually they have a very healthy life, as I said in the beginning. And usually it's only the injuries that keep us from being very healthy. And maybe some of the decisions we do from day to day that can lead to a bit of a health issue. But often it's not on the long term, it's mostly then on the short term. Okay, so now I'm happy to say hello to Judith.
Hi. Hi, Anna, and hi, all. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, glad you could join us. We are reaching you in Switzerland, is that right?
Exactly. Back home close to Bern, in sunny Switzerland.
Yeah, that's cool that it's getting warm and getting better now. So to be able to train a lot outside, you as an ultra trail runner, I think being outside is like your main stage where you are.
Yeah, I mean, there is no bad weather, as people say, but still, I do like the warm weather more. So I'm really happy the sun is out, and it makes it more easier for me to go out once a day or twice a day. Yeah, definitely. Really looking forward to snow-free mountains too. So yeah.
That's right. Okay, yeah, we wanted to have a bit of a chat regarding long-term health. So I would ask you some questions, and later on we may have the chance also to include some questions from the listeners. So, Judith, what does long-term health in general means to you personally, if you heard that term?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it is a medical term. So, of course, you think about, the importance of these terms. But also for me, it means even a bigger thing, like to be healthy throughout the whole life. It is important, especially having kids as well. It means also being fit in like 20, 30 years. Being fit doesn't mean elite sport, but being able to be outside, to move myself, and that's a really important thing. And that all together kind of brings the health for me together.
Yeah, I think that is what you said, to also be able to accomplish a lot in the future, even if your elite career is over. That's of course like a long-term goal. Yeah,
and of course also, I mean, being fit on point when it comes to competition or daily training. Of course, this does mean it does matter as well. But I think for me, it's a bigger picture, all this. So I think it's been more than just being an athlete and performing. It's being healthy throughout the whole life.
yes. Yeah, nice. how do you manage recovery beyond just the training? Like, what is your go-tos when it comes to recovery?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question and it's hard to answer it in one sentence, I would say. But I mean, recovery for me is time off from sports. Sounds really easy, but when you're an elite athlete or also an athlete, thoughts are always kind of coped with training or performance. And being away from that for me already is kind of recovery. It gives me a break from everything. It gives me a break from performance, but also from fixing everything for your next training or goal. But then also, of course, food does matter a lot. I love to cook, so also like it's not all about healthy food, but about enjoying food and having different foods, also treats, of course. You've mentioned dark chocolate, so now I'm really happy to be able to eat more dark chocolate. No, but I mean it's really important for me to have my treats, and then of course as an athlete, you need to think about what you take after your training to recover best from it. And there, the products from MNSTRY, of course, come in. The recovery products, of course, they help a lot to be able to recover from a tough strength training, or also already fueling myself in the training to be able to recover faster after. And then third, but maybe the smallest part for me would be massage or physio or whatever kind of is from outside. It always takes time, so therefore it's a small amount in my daily living because you need to travel where the massage is, where the people are who help you. So sometimes just half an hour nap would be better for me, but still this is also of course helping recovery throughout the week or the athlete life.
Yeah, that's a quite big pool of recovery aids. But what you said about also the training nutrition, I think recovery does not only start afterwards, but as you said, it kind of matters how you end the training session. Is it in a complete glycogen depleted state where you really feel fatigued and may not recover as good for the next training session, or did you like take care of your glycogen storage and do not like suffer from a complete depletion? And yeah.
This point is really important for me because some years ago I was way worse in this. I had to learn as well. I mean, people didn't talk as much about nutrition during training when it comes to 1.5 hours training hours per training. But now I definitely feel the difference. And it's really an important change in my recovery, actually, to be able to cope 150 kilometers a week or whatever, heavy loads. That's kind of a big change. So I'm really happy I found out about that. And I really implemented it in my daily training.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Yeah. And when it comes to the gut, would you say you think actively about your gut health, or maybe also the nutrition quality?
So I think I'm a person who thinks quite often about gut health because I have been struggling with gut health quite much. I've not tolerated all products, for example, different brands were not working, but also it depends a lot on what I eat, if I'm able to run without any bush stops and everything. So therefore I think about it quite often. But I mean, I think I've learned from home to really use the stuff you have, like the vegetables and everything you have at home. So therefore, of course, the quality of food for me has always mattered. And I'm lucky that I like to cook, but when it comes back to daily life, of course, the time is really tense and it's not always possible. So it's always to find this balance in between the best food possible, but also the kind of the happy kids on site. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's it kind of always comes to the right balance, because that's also what you said. It's very important to either like cooking and also having the time for it, which is certainly not always the case when time is scarce, as you said. Yeah, I think this is very, very important. And all the strategies that I told was kind of the optimization, what to do to optimize it. But of course, reality is often balancing it out and trying to make the best out of it. But as you said, if you're lucky if you like to cook, because that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it does, but I mean, time still is really tight. So, for example, if you talk about fermented stuff, of course, I would love to do more fermented food myself, but it's really not possible to do everything. Also, having my sourdough or everything, but it's just a choice I've done to be able to take help and to maybe go and buy good stuff at a nice store who has fermented food or whatever. So I think yeah, this is also something about accepting that I can't do everything, but what I'm doing I'm kind of really like to do, so therefore it's possible to do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good. Yeah, what are the, like, if you can tell us, I don't know, would you say you would have like one or two habits that like made the biggest difference for you when it comes to like these long-term health decisions, or again, general, if you think about like these healthy options?
So I think one thing I've already went into, and it's really fueling myself during trainings. I mean, I've always been good in fueling myself outside of training, but I think especially to really know why I fuel myself and not be scared about gaining weight or like kind of over fueling or whatever is a really important part. And I think that has changed my ability of training harder and also to be able to still compete and train in the higher age. I mean, I'm not the youngest anymore, and I still compete with 20, like with 15-year younger girls, so or female athletes. So therefore, this has definitely changed a lot for me. And then I think I'm quite good nowadays to be flexible with everything. I mean, I've always been the person who is flexible in kind of like doing several things. So I'm studying, I'm working, I have family and everything. But I think when it comes to training, it has learned me to be like more. I have my plan, but I'm more flexible to talk and to change it maybe if it comes to overload or if it comes to tiredness, whatever. Not just to go and grind it through, because this would definitely make you more sick or more unhealthy throughout, and maybe also less performant in the longer stage. Maybe, of course, you will not get everything out for the next race, but for the whole season, it definitely will help you to take a step back and to think smart and to prioritize or to be more flexible.
Yeah, so good what you said. Absolutely, I agree. What you said, to be flexible is such, it comes actually to the stress management and to listen to your body. And if you're able to do that, it's yeah, the best way. And the first thing that you said about your training nutrition, I think that also counts into energy balance, because often we think about the energy demand surrounding the training. So what do I need for evening? What, how big should my breakfast today, or so on, if I train. But like having an energy balance can, like the training nutrition can be part of it, or should be a part of it, to make it easier also, and to reach the goals that you have from day to day, which as an athlete can be sometimes very high, the energy demand. So yeah, it's also should count in these energy requirements. And you already mentioned a few, if I want to call it a mistake, or if yeah, or more of experiences. But is there a mistake maybe you can give us as listeners, which you made maybe early in your career, and you would now avoid absolutely when it comes to these health decisions?
I think I'm really happy. I've never done like these huge mistakes I would like to cut out of my career or my life. I think I've learned from situations and got better to do things in the future. Because yeah, mistakes are always like, you need to do kind of things you're not sure, or test things, and to call them mistakes, it's really negative. To really call them as a test and you kind of learn out of it, I think it gives you more mentally also to work on it and to find a solution. Therefore, it's really hard to pick out something. But of course, being an athlete over 25 or 20 years, I mean, I've had like 15 years competing on the highest level in orienteering. Orienteering is a really well-known sport in Switzerland. It's the competition time is like like around 1.5 hours maximum. So it's not as long as in trail running, where I'm running for 6-7 hours nowadays. So nutrition doesn't matter as much, and also the times were a bit different, so we didn't know better. And throughout these 15 years, I was always like kind of a little bit less than I should have eaten. So my body was always like kind of working hard to be able to stay healthy. And then 2020, I got a stress fracture, or a fracture. It's not only a stress fracture, it has been also on load because of pregnancy and everything. But I mean, this was my first fracture ever. And of course, it's also because my body was always a bit underfueled, a bit too much stressed over many years. And it works so long. Also for young athletes, if I talk about others, it works maybe for some, it only works for 1 year to like really push yourself to maximum. But for many, it works over 10-15 years, and then there is a crash. And I think if I would have known that before, that it's not worth like really, kind of putting your body into danger, just because you're always a bit low. I think this would be something I would definitely like to know before, and would what I don't want to do again.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, first of all. Yeah, I think this is a very good recommendation for especially young athletes, where we, as you said, usually we do not feel these symptoms, or if it comes to an energy deficiency, we often are able to hold that for a very long time. And when remember the model that I showed you about allostatic load, this is not a day-to-day graph, so that is something that happens over a month. So it's not something that is like, for example, the bone health. It's not poor by tomorrow. This like evolves over time from for example, a low energy availability over time. And yeah, often we do not know that in that moment because everything works fine. We compete in a successful level. But on the longer term, this energy deficiency can, of course, be a high risk, as you said. And yeah, it's of course, it's not only, yeah, it's for every athlete, I think, a very, very good recommendation, but especially in the young age where we may not suffer from a lot of these symptoms, because the body like can pick up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw we have some questions from the listeners, and I would like to start with the first one. Is energy based on kilocalorie intake, or what is the connection to oxidative stress? Yeah, I think maybe it also came clear now a bit in the conversation with Judith. So I would say it's the kilocalorie intake, or the amount of calories that you take in, does of course like fill your energy demand, or may not fill the energy demand, as if it's not enough. And over time, if it's not enough, so your body will always have like this stress, because it costs the body stress to like compete with not having enough energy. But all your organs, your functions, they will all still use energy, need energy, and then it's whether your performance gets lower or less, or any vital functions, for example, of hormonal level. You may not have your menstruation as a woman, or any other functions, for example, the growth of your hair or whatever. Or you may be a lot sick, so your immune health will suffer. So a low energy intake does lead to these symptoms that I just said, but it's actually a result of having a lot of oxidative stress also. So it's kind of, you can equalize this. So having a low energy availability means oxidative stress for your body. I would like answer this in this way. Do you have something to say or to add, Judith?
No, I think it's a really important topic, but it's also really hard to kind of find the exact measurements or like how you exactly do it. And I think there it was really helpful for me to find help or to look for help to really do it and talk about especially what needs do I have. Also maybe have bike tests with exactly nutrition data and everything. So this has helped me a lot also, because I think it's really hard, and it still is hard for me to get everything in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to understand the demand, of course, and then how to measure it, which is then the next step. And I would recommend to, even if it's not intended to do it always, but to once maybe, or for a week, track your nutrition to see the amount of energy, or if you want to call it kilocalories, that come in, meet the demand that you have, and this can be a help to do it once, just to have an overview, to see how much fat, how much sugars, how much carbohydrates in general, and how much protein do I get in. It's very interesting to do that once, and not to stick too much on the numbers, but to get an impression on that. And the next question would be, how should I structure my daily diet to improve my gut? Have you specific foods in mind? Well, this is quite individual, I would say. The ideas that I presented earlier are optimal foods that I would suggest to put them into your daily nutrition. And what I always say when I was a sports nutritionist, to go into the supermarket and not buy all the same stuff that you do usually, because we are used to buy our, 20 ingredients that we always buy. But just to once go into the supermarket and think about, today I'm going to buy something completely different that does not usually find the way into my storage. So just to think about having a diverse diet, having something different, can help to alter your gut, to increase the gut diversity, the bacteria in our gut. And then have foods that you like, that you find also pleasant to take, because it's never a good idea to take something that you do not like. If you do not like sauerkraut, you should not eat it, because food should still be enjoyable. As Judith also said, treats are very important to enjoy food. So I would say, pick the foods you like and try to make it as diverse as possible, and just to trick yourself sometimes and not getting too used to your own habits.
Taking recipes for me sometimes helps if you have time to look up recipes, or sometimes, of course, you find heaps of things on Insta, but there are actually some good people who have amazing accounts, and I think this sometimes helps me to kind of change my habits and to get inspiration. And
very good idea. Yes,
seldom cook the recipes structured afterwards, but just to get a new kind of inspiration, it's quite cool for me.
Yeah, getting inspiration is a very good tip. Yeah, having some apps maybe that help you to cook different foods. Yeah. So the next question would be one for you, Judith. Someone asks, how do you realize where your limit is in terms of stress, physically, mentally, and emotionally?
Hard question. Because if I ask it back, do all people here realize when they are stressed or when they have too much? I think it's really hard to answer this question
Everybody
for
wants to know the
everyone.
answer, but yeah.
And I don't have the answer, but I think for me it helps to have my environment, like my husband, of course, also, or my parents around, or whatever, people who really also help me to see my kind of how I look, how I guess, how I talk, how I kind of eat, whatever. And this also helps me to kind of reflect how I am. And then of course, being an athlete for so long, when it comes to training, it helps you to really think about yourself, think about your trainings, having someone like my coach who knows me for now 11 years. And this all together helps me to realize when it's too much. But yeah, I'm really good at loading myself with stuff because I love to do different things. And it's definitely something I probably will need to work throughout my whole life, to be always aware of these signals, and to rethink. And one thing I've learned a lot in the last half year, I would say, is meditation. And meditation has helped me to kind of be with myself in a calm way and not do anything. And I'm not good at doing it every day or every second day or whatever, but I do it from time to time in my daily routine, but also a bit longer. And this helps me also to realize now it's too much load and I can't refocus on my breath, refocus on nothing or whatever. This is kind of a really important tool for me now.
Yeah, very interesting. I think when it comes to this question, like how to realize the stress amount, the stress that occurs in the body, it's often not the easiest symptoms to know, but I would say we often also feel it in terms of being very not anxious, but feeling the nerves that are a bit tense, and we like always are alert and maybe not find the best sleep anymore. I think there's some symptoms that we all can relate to, but it's also quite individual. Not everybody has like the same symptoms. Other ones may be tired all the time, which can also be a symptom. So
I think this is really important thing. Yeah, for me, it could also be a diarrhea before races, for example. You definitely feel the stress directly, and you know which symptoms you have, or kind of also sometimes it's some things with your hands you do, whatever, or kind of nails in your mouth or whatever. I think it's to find out what symptoms you feel is really important, and to be aware of them helps me to be able to cope with it.
Yeah. Okay, I think there's two questions that we can sum up and maybe make it our last question for today. So one asks, can energy gels be bad for the gut health? Are there better options? And another one asks, you mentioned that sugar is bad for the gut in everyday nutrition. What about sugar during exercise? Is there any evidence suggesting that it is just as harmful in that context? And if so, how should we deal with it? Very good question. I would relate to this topic in terms of energy gels that we create. So during exercise, or no, let's make it easier. If we see how an energy gel is absorbed, it is happening in our proximal, so in the small intestine, not in the large intestine where our gut microbiome sits, but it's in the first half of our gut, in the small intestine, and this happens very quickly. So it usually takes only a few minutes to be broken down for example, the maltodextrin, and then we can like pick it up, and then it gets into the blood system, and it is being like transported to the cells, to the muscle cells, where it's used directly. So it's a very easy system to understand where this sugar then goes, and it's not affect any, for example, if we have a lot of sugars that are not needed from the system and that should be stored somewhere, or that then like oxidize, and we see, for example, then arteriosclerosis or something, that if sugars are accumulating in a sedentary behavior, so we do not exercise, as I said, in daily nutrition, we should not have a lot of these refined sugars. We can have them as treats from time to time, but it should not be a daily food in our, for example, if I have a coffee, it's not really healthy to put refined sugar into this coffee and have every day this sugar dose without exercising. But in terms of a gel, that is not a problem, because when we are exercising and when we are in this state, or our body is in that state, we can like use this sugar immediately. For example, if I drink a drink mix from a liter in training, I know that like 80 to 90% is absorbed immediately by the muscle, taken up into the glycogen, or then broken down into glucose. So we use it immediately. Whereas maybe 10% is then stored in our muscles, so we have it for later on. But the body would not take the choice to use an energy gel or a drink mix in that moment and store it somewhere, for example, in the fat or so, because in that moment the body is in the state of giving you energy to work out. So in this so I would say it's not bad for gut health. It would be not good for our gut health if we take it just by sitting around and not being doing exercising, but also not for once, because if I eat a Haribo, or if I eat a chocolate bar or so on, it's not an issue. It's just always like the size of, or the amount of sugars that we eat if we are not working out, if we're not exercising. And there's not really a better option when it comes to giving the body energy when it needs energy during exercise. So this would be my answer in that case.
Yeah, it's really important. I think this is something I've learned a lot, that to have the sugar when you need it, to use it during training, is way more efficient than having it as a craving after, because you haven't been eating during training and your body just needs energy. And therefore, after the training, of course, also the sugar is worse for your gut, but during, right, as you said, it really helps. And it's really something which is really important for me. And yeah, I mean, I think we are able to absorb way more than we think during training. And I've been actually, it's quite an interesting question, because I've been asked by a dentist,
Okay.
like, what do you think when you always drink or eat kind of sugar during training as well? And that's something I've been thinking of. And yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather eat and drink the sugar while I train, and then I go back home and brush my teeth, or also keep on a water bottle in between I take my stuff in training, than eating sugar over the daily living, like when I'm sitting and working and drink my coffee with sugar, or have a kind of a cake beside, and I'm just sitting here and eating all the time, which is, I think, at least the same or worse for my teeth or for my gut when it comes to injuries or problems later on. So
yeah, absolutely. And what maybe relates to this question, when I think about dental health, we also try always to keep track on the pH in our drink mixes, for example. because a low pH will like demineralize your tooth enamel, and that really is bad for our dental health. And a low pH it's really even worse than sugars, because it just eats up your tooth. So this is something that we keep track on, to have a pH that is above 5.5 or 5, so 5-ish, to keep that in mind, and also not only focus on the gut health or the health in general, but also on in the health and in the teeth. Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we covered a lot today. It was very interesting to chat about this topic with you, Judith, and I think it was very interesting also to learn something from your experiences, as you told us, and even to take that maybe as listeners in your nutrition habits or training habits, and maybe it gives us all a bit of a more awareness to listen to our body and to be aware of this kind of oxidative stress, and knowing that we have these fabric in ourselves, the gut microbiome, that can work and do so much good for us, but we have to feed it and to to treat it well, in terms of getting the best out of it. And so I hope we could create a good webinar today, and I would be looking forward to having you in the next webinar. And I wish you all a very good evening.
Yeah, same for me. Have a nice evening, and thanks for having me.